That time I got reincarnated as a demon lord, English, by LordedoMal44. 57 A new everyday life. We entered the Tempest house and everyone chose their respective rooms. Shuna and Sue decided to spend their first few days with their parents while they figured out how they can help in Tempest, an area they would best serve, while Benimaru and Shion were more than happy to live with us. The look Shuna gave Benimaru. No, I really didn't understand why. I'll consider it just a family thing and move on. Speaking of family, Sarai-chan pulled me by the hand into Tiamat's room, which room had apparently become a place for hangouts and sleepovers while I was gone. There I was reunited with my other daughters. Argento was sleeping on a pillow on top of Shirori's spider body back, who was stroking her hair while she was also sleeping. Tiamat just watched the two of them from a huge cushion made of leather where she was, a big smile on her face. As soon as I walked through the door, Shirori, who was sleeping, woke up and turned towards me, and Tiamat did the same, with Argento being the only one still sleeping. "Welcome back, Oto-chan." Tiamat was the first to greet me. Getting up from the cushion she was on, Tiamat crawled towards me with her serpentine body and wrapped me in a really tight hug, which made me grateful my physical attack resistance was really good, and got me dragged to another pillow next to hers where my dear daughter placed me sitting. As for me, I just went with the flow of events, not wanting to interrupt whatever they were doing. "So, Oto-sama, how was the battle?" "It was a good battle. There were no losses for either side, and we left with the ogres as our allies." Shirori asked with a downcast, embarrassed expression, and I replied by smiling at her, trying to make her feel less anxious in my presence. Even though I was the one who created her using my skill, I don't understand why she's so shy. Still, I'm not the type of person to complain about the way others behave. Also, I prefer her way of acting to Tiamat's, which scares me for some reason. Maybe she looks too much like Seal-chan. I never know what either one of them is thinking. "Oto-chan, you should be understanding with Okawa-chan. Didn't you ask her to be the way she is?" I looked at Tiamat, seeing the way she smiled enigmatically at me, the expression on her face practically impossible to read. I just didn't know what it was she was thinking, and even though I was pretty sure she didn't have bad intentions, at least I don't think she has bad intentions, she was impossible to understand for me. And let's just ignore the fact that she called Seal-chan, Okawa-chan, all for the sake of what mental health I have left. The scariest thing is that she seems to have Tasuki-chan's ability to read my mind. In fact, "You're just too obvious. Less than you're just too obvious, greater than." I ignored the words of the two, Tiamat and Seal talking inside my head, and just let out a sigh. Apparently, Tiamat inherited some really dangerous traits from Seal-chan, didn't she? I can't say that I don't like her the way she is. She has what you would call a really unique personality, to the point where I wonder if I really created her. Well, that's just proof of that. How real it is. I don't think I would be able to replace her, or want her to be different. A part of me, deep down, loved having her as a daughter. That's crazy. Me, a promising 17-year-old, ended up being stabbed in a robbery, died, traveled to another world, reincarnated into the body of a slime. And now I have 4 daughters to take care of. And it's been less than 6 months since I got here. Well, enough about me or the war. How about each of you telling me a little bit about what it was like for you during the time I was away? 3 days have passed since my return. Right now I'm just focusing on spending time together with my daughters and making up for all the time I've spent away on the battlefield. They seemed pretty happy when I talked about having family time, so I decided that would be the plan for the next few days. Today is one of our first family events. Me, Seal-chan, Shirori-chan and Argento got ready and left the Tempest house, and are heading to one of the training grounds. Seal-chan said that she had thought of some good games that we could play together, though she didn't want to tell me what they were in advance. Well, I made sure it wasn't anything too weird or kinky, since they're my daughters. So that's fine. Also, according to Seal-chan, it would be good to know what the actual extent of their current capabilities is. And, just for the record, Tiamat is at one of the training camps, training with Tasuki-chan in the use of magic, so she won't be participating. Sarai-chan also went on what she called an adventure day with a friend of hers, so I decided it would just be the 4 of us today. Irresponsible. Know that I told her to stay only in the shallowest parts of the forest, so that she would be safe. in addition to asking Ranga to go with her. Therefore, I am a very responsible father who would never leave his daughter without at least one A+ ranked bodyguard. But, back to the present moment. Argento is sleeping on Shiroori-chan's back as usual. In fact, I don't think I've seen this girl awake once since I got back to Tempest. The only time I saw her awake was after I created her. After that she spent most of her time by my side sleeping. Argento was bred from a giant bat, a race originally nocturnal. As a result, Argento spends most of the day sleeping, and trains with the night guard here in Tempest to pass the time. Seal Chan explained, probably after having heard, and without my permission, for the record, my thoughts. Even so, instead of getting irritated, I have to thank her. Sometimes, because of the human appearance, I forget that everyone around me is actually a monster. I looked at Argento for a moment, this time with a slightly different look. He knew that Gobuman had led a night guard at Gobuda's request, but he had never noticed Argento training with them. Maybe I need to pay even more attention to my daughters. Moving a little closer to Shiroori, who was carrying Argento on her spidery back, I reached out my hand and began to lightly stroke Argento's head. Her hair was very soft, and when my hand caressed her scalp, Argento let out a soft sigh, and a smile appeared on her face. "Ah, you." I averted my gaze and turned towards Shiroori-chan's face, who had made those sounds. Her face was red and she was looking away, embarrassed, but her eyes flickered to look at me from time to time. She was acting all shy, which is very strange considering her 2-meter tall body. Immediately realizing the meaning of this, I changed the shape of my arm and extended it until I could reach her head, and I stroked her a little too. "Thank you, Tu-chan." Those words after 3 days didn't scare me that much anymore. They were my daughters, and I was their father. These thoughts didn't seem to be so strange anymore inside my head, although I was still very homesick for my dream of having a harem. Will I ever have at least one beautiful girl who really wants me? What do you say to me, Sage? What awaits me in the future? Less than answer. Ideal version of the future. A total of 10 wives and 20 children, half of the children a result of future experimentation, adopted and half conceived through the act of S to greater than. Please stop, I don't know where you get your crazy predictions, but even I don't see myself in a harem situation like that. Seriously, man, 5 wives would be enough to kill me. I know that, also, please, no more than 7 children. Do you think I'm rich, by any chance, to pay so much child support? With that thought having been said, I returned my focus to the reality around me. We had already arrived at one of the training grounds. A few guards could be seen here and there doing their daily training, and we were heading to a corner further away from the others. They were just doing basic training, nothing like the overhauled hellish training I'd soon have Gobuda and the others doing, but it was still satisfying to see it take place. This kingdom continues to grow, little by little, and soon I'll have to go back to my training to grow alongside this kingdom. When the real enemies arrive, I must be ready. And if they don't come, we go to them. I thought about it, but I put that thought out of my head right after. I still have a lot of questions I need to answer before I make up my mind as to what kind of demon lord I want to be. So what game are we going to play, Seal-chan? I thought a bit about what would be a good game to start with. I came to the conclusion that dodgeball would be a good start. Seal answered me, pulling what looked like a ball from inside Predator's stomach. I looked at the ball she pulled out of storage. At first anyone would say that this is just a normal ball, but if you look closer you immediately see that this ball is anything but normal. For starters, this ball is made using magic metal fibers, which means it's practically indestructible to almost anything we throw at it, in addition to absorbing our spells perfectly. In summary, the difference between this ball and a very high-quality weapon is only the way and the moment in which it is used. Burned. Are you sure this is a good idea? Burned isn't exactly the most peaceful game in the world. A person with more physical strength can throw a ball with really frightening force, so when I compare the Argento Loli and the 2-meter-tall Shiroori I can only think that this is going to end with one of my daughters crying. But then I remembered that they are not human, and that appearances matter very little in this world. Don't worry. Argento isn't the type to let herself go when she's motivated. Seal-chan said that and approached Argento, still sleeping on Shiroori's back. She whispered something in her ear, which I didn't try to hear out of respect for mother and daughter, privacy. The next moment, Argento got up and jumped off Shiroori's back, super excited. See? I told you. I looked closer at Argento once more, his red eyes meeting my golden ones. Was she looking at me? Like she was some kind of prey? Maybe I really should have listened to what Seal told her. Very well. The rules of the game are simple. Hit the opponent with the ball. The first one to be hit by the ball and then the ball falls to the ground loses. If you manage to grab the ball you are safe and can try to hit the opponent. Understood? The two nodded, as did I, and we braced ourselves. But before I could get ready, Seal grabbed me by the arm, preventing me from moving. Since your dad doesn't understand how to play this game, how about you two show him? I didn't quite understand why Seal said that, but I went with the flow. My danger instinct told me that the best option for me was to stay out of it as much as possible, which was a little odd considering I'd really been excited for this game just a few seconds ago. The two nodded at Ciel's words and backed away a little, the ball in the middle between the two of them. Ciel approached, ball in hand, and threw the ball in the air to start the game. Hell set in on Earth, and my two daughters immediately became the demons that would destroy everything in their path. For an instant I thought Ciel had started a small war, and not merely a game, which forced me to do a double take. Faster than the average eye could see, Argento moved, launching himself towards the ball at a speed really unnatural for a person with such skinny arms and legs. A wave of air gathered around her as she moved, and she left an afterimage as she moved toward the ball. Since when is this girl so fast? As if Shirori had realized that she couldn't compete with Argento's speed, instead of charging towards the ball Shirori backed away, taking a good distance while using her webs to create a small net in front of her. In a fraction of a second, a net made of sticky steel wires extended, seemingly serving as a shield. Not that it seemed to protect against Argento. The moment she caught the ball Argento surged forward, charging towards the net created by Shirori as if she really didn't care much for her defense, pausing just a moment before touching the net as she assumed shooting position, clearly threatening to play the ball towards the net. Normally the ball couldn't pierce a net made of steel wires, but Argento was anything but normal. Gathering magic around her hand, a kind of air barrier formed around the ball that Argento was holding, just before she released the ball. The ball was moving at truly insane speed, tracing the distance to the steel wires in a second and then snapping them with just one collision. How did she manage to create an air barrier that causes so much damage? No, actually, this is more than just an air barrier. Sage, what is this? Less than answer. The sonic barrier is a technique developed by Argento to assist with an increase in the user's speed and offensive power. Using wind manipulation and ultrasonic wave as the key, Argento created a technique of her own. Greater than. So basically she created a technique where she surrounds an object with air and makes the air vibrate at such a high speed that it serves as an offensive attack? Less than precisely. It can also be used to stir up the particles that make up the air in order to push them away, creating the user's ultimate defensive armor. Greater than. Which is basically the air barrier I saw surrounding her body earlier. That's why she could move with a speed like that, something that is far beyond her natural speed. Still, if this girl is always sleeping, at least as far as I've seen her, when did she find the time to develop something like this? While I was wondering this, Shirori stopped, planting her 8 paws against the ground. A slight worry surged through me when I saw her stand still against an attack that moved so fast that it could surely destroy a tree if it hit the way it was. But Shirori just developed a defensive stance, as if he was some sort of goalkeeper. And then, using both of his hands in front of his body, Shirori caught the ball. For a second I was amazed, seeing how such a seemingly fragile girl was able to hold something like that, but thinking about how she was actually an arachne, and that her body was naturally formed originally by a carapace, so it's more than it is certain that her natural defensive capabilities are extremely high. And then, without thinking twice, and using his apparently equally high strength, Shirori launched the ball towards Argento. For a second I wondered if this was really the best thing to do. Argento was faster than Shirori, so even though the ball was moving very fast, it was more than likely that Argento would be able to catch it in midair, and she could simply prepare for a counterattack. In fact, that's exactly what she did, assuming a defensive stance and moving on instinct, Argento spun in the air, avoiding touching the ball with his hands and instead stepping back, allowing the ball to pass by him. For a second I wondered why she would do something like that, when she could have just caught the ball, but in the next moment, something strange happened. The ball, which passed her, curved in midair and went towards the shores of Argento. Looking closely, I could clearly see how small, thin steel wires connected to the ball, and the wires bent as they were manipulated, launching the ball towards Argento again and again, with her only avoiding the attack once after the other. It made me realize something. What kind of infernal game has Seal taught my daughters? Less than answer. Dodgeball, soccer, volleyball and baseball, adapted for different races and age groups, in addition to the player's experiences. Greater than. Okay. So why does it look like one of them is going to chop down a tree while playing? Less than impossible. The control they have is precise and to greater than. Before Seal could finish, Argento gathered a sonic barrier around her hands and she used the sonic waves to attack the ball, destroying the threads tying the ball, and along with the threads the tree Argento was leaning against shattered and collapsed. Even so, she didn't care and concentrated on it, just focusing on getting the ball and attacking again. Once the ball was in Argento's hands, she repeated the attack from before once more, the force behind the attack much greater this time. Perhaps realizing that she couldn't parry the attack so easily this time, Shiroori made the steel wires coat her hands assume her stance once more. With a glove of steel around her hands, and with aura coating to increase defense, Shiroori held back the Argento's attack again. Even so, judging by her trembling hands and the gloves that were torn to shreds, it was more than obvious that she hadn't been all that successful in defending. Despite having the ball successfully in his hands, Shiroori didn't seem in perfect shape to continue the game. Argento looked up, the red color of his eyes taking on a dark tinge. I felt a little scared at that moment, but I couldn't take my gaze away from hers. Since when does she have 8 eyes? I see you're looking a little better than last time, Argento-chan. Maybe I should get a little more serious. As if in response to Shiroori's threat, Argento smirked, his sharp canine teeth showing between his lips and a pair of wings suddenly sprouting from between his back. The aura around her had also turned slightly macabre as if she was some kind of ancient vampire about to devour everyone. Hump. Do you really think you can beat me? I got stronger, all because of the blood? In that instant I understood. I will be a demon lord in the future, and these were my daughters, the daughters of a demon lord.